He's just trying to do it. He's a young yeah, he's good.
Where are we going to sit? Cool. You want to sit here? Hi, anymore? Oh, go ahead. Thank you. You're welcome.
Once in a while I hear it going up or down. They sit up a while. I've been watching.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you. Appreciate all of you coming out. It's a nice group, and I hope we'll be able to answer a lot of your questions. I know there are a lot of questions. I appreciate you coming out, and we have I think an exciting evening tonight because we've got more data and more information we can give you. As you know, we developed a solar committee for the mutual to investigate originally, and then we came out with the survey. The results of the survey, we got back from the 62 manners, all but 4 manners responded, and of the 58 that responded, we had over 80% that wanted to continue looking into it. So the committee took that as a positive statement, and we went ahead and had a number of committee meetings, and I'll let other people describe what went on at those meetings, but the committee's worked really hard to bring it to this stage, and we are at the stage where we need to make some additional decisions. But be that as it may, I appreciate your coming out. There'll be a time for question and answers. If you want to write your questions down, that's fine. It would be helpful. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to our Solar Committee Chairman, Norm King.
Good evening, and thank you again for coming out tonight. I just wanted to give you a little bit more detail about what happened in the committee. We had our meeting, when was that, in June, and we were very, very fortunate in having somebody on our team who is a total expert at doing in the overall bidding process and getting large companies bids for work. And he really guided us along the path. Richard Pancost does this for a living, and so it took a lot of the weight off of the rest of the team that he knew how to do this, and I really do appreciate it. And I also appreciate Dr. Reppert, who has given us a lot of guidance in terms of his experience, having worked with contractors in the mutual before, and has a sixth sense about the bidding, the presentation process and so forth, and has also kept us on track in terms of what's required as far as the mutual is concerned to really get this thing going on a firm foundation. I'm going to just quickly reintroduce the team members again. Richard Pancost, and I'm going to say this. Let me, if you have something to write with, the team members are going to serve as your advocates, and we've broken up the number of buildings and taken kind of a proprietary interest in these buildings, And feel free to call your representative, or we can call you if we sense a need. Richard has 3306, 3340, and 3250. Chief Ewing on our committee has 3318 and 3274. Bill Van Lack, who is back taking the video for this evening, has 3266 and 3258. And I have 3324 and 3282. So if you have any questions, be sure to give us a call or send us an email. I'm a little bit better with emails than I am with the telephone. Was there a question? Oh, okay. I just wanted to give you a little step-by-step of what we went through here. It's taken us the duration since June. First of all, we selected 9 solar contractors, and we kind of did this by reputation and knowledge. We had 9 that we wanted to go out and examine their qualifications. They look good in the ads, and they look good, from feedback. There was some personal feedback. We evaluated based on several criteria, among those the size of the company, their financial strength, the number of employees, whether or not they had experience doing multi-units, apartment houses, condominiums, and that kind of thing. The complaints that they may have received with the contract board, and their use of subcontractors, which can be either way. Subcontractors can go kind of either way, but it is something to look at. We got 9 qualification sets back. We selected 4 of the best of those to ask them for proposals. We held 4 walkthroughs where we invited the contractors to come up, and we looked through 3306 and used that as a model for the rest of the buildings. We received 3 proposals out of that. 1 declined, and then we held 3 55-minute interviews of the providers, and they were all very good, but we made our selection, and we'll hear from him tonight. The board approved the selection on the 12th. A week ago, we took it to the board, and they have approved our selection. And tonight, I want to introduce Jeff Parr from Solar Technologies. And let me say that Jeff is one of the 2 contractors who is the finalist for the GRF large array up on the hill. And so that means that if he does our condominium, it'll be right in his backyard. Well, actually, the large array is in our backyard, right? So we can wish him luck on that. And tonight, Jeff is going to present what he would do for us, and try to answer people's questions. And so I'm going to walk around with the microphone, or if you prefer, you can write the question down on the card. But without further ado, let me present Jeff Parr.
Good evening, everyone. There we go. Can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. All right. So we have a little presentation prepared for you. And as I was introduced, we went through a fairly rigorous vetting process. They looked at who we are as a contractor, who all the other contractors were, but also dug into pretty deeply, what's the most effective and efficient way to go about installing solar for a development like this. So, you have a few unique aspects of your community where it's vertical. You have multiple stories, you have multiple units within those stories. Every unit has its own PG&E meter. All of those things kind of create some unique aspects of the project and how you go about building these things. So we're going to walk you through kind of all that, how solar works and how we're going to be implementing this on the individual buildings. Can you guys see this? That better? I think the projector's off a little bit on the color. Tonight I'm going to walk you through who we are as a company, so you get a little intro there and get comfortable with who we are, who you're going to be working with. We're going to go through how solar works from a very basic level. The benefits of going solar, the benefits of using sun power panels, and I'll get into that here in a second. How we're going to design and install these systems. And then we're actually going to go through some examples, or an example of what a typical system would look like for a manor. And that's going to be, the example that we're going to be showing you is pretty close to the midpoint. We looked at I think it was 3306, several units usage, and kind of were able to determine, what those average monthly bills look like, and from that design a system that kind of hits the midpoint. So I think it'll be a good example to show you kind of what the expectation should be going into this. And then lastly, we'll walk you through the process. So I think I might be jumping the gun here for the solar committee, but one of the challenges, or not challenges, but one of the aspects of this project is, given that it is kind of an HOA-sponsored initiative, I think one of the concerns of the HOA and of the solar committee was, how do you go about doing this in a uniform manner? So how do you go about putting panels that all look the same, that have a good aesthetic look on all the rooftops, install them the same way, do the electrical work the same way, make sure, one, that it's efficient, it's cost effective, but also that it has a nice look and a nice appeal to it with really reliable equipment, so everyone's going to be happy. So getting to who we are. So, the color's off a little bit, I apologize for that. So we were founded in 1998 in Santa Cruz, California. We're one of the oldest standing solar contractors in the state. 17 years of experience. We have 2,500 plus systems installed. We're both a residential and a commercial company, so we have a lot of commercial and residential systems all over the Bay Area. You can't really make them out here, but those dots represent all of our systems, so you can kind of see where a lot of our work is clustered. I won't bore you with kind of all these things, but any accreditation that you can earn in this business, whether you're NABCEP certified, all these different accreditations, we've achieved all those. And we're a C10 electrical contractor and a C46 solar contractor. So in essence, anything that's needed to be done related to a solar project like this, we can do, even if it requires electrical upgrades and things like that on the main service panels and that type of stuff. The main people you're going to be working with are myself. I'm the president of the company. You're also going to have Kyle Severns, who was part of this process, some of the initial meetings. He runs our residential group, and then you're going to have, on the construction side, once we actually get started, you're going to have James Donaldson and Mike Ross, who are going to be kind of the in-office and on-site directors of commercial activity, and they're going to be the ones running the installation work. So, getting back to, part of the reason that we were selected, I think one of the criteria that goes into it is, are we good at what we do? Do we treat customers well? Everything you want to see from a contractor. One of the panels that were selected were SunPower panels. This is a survey that SunPower actually does, and these are rankings that they send out to their network of dealers. There's about 600, I think 600 or 700 SunPower dealers around the country. And you can see that our scores, these are surveys of people a year after their systems have been installed. And you can see that 94%, were promoting our work, 6% were passive, and 0% were negative, which is considerably higher than all the rest of the SunPower dealers that were out there as an average. So let's get into how solar works. It's very simple, really, in its installation and operation. Sorry, I'm not too experienced working with the microphone here. It's pretty simple in its installation and operation. So you're going to have panels that go up on the roof, obviously. Those panels produce DC power, direct current. And so what we need to do is we need to invert that power to AC current that the homes can use. So your homes run on AC power. That's what PG&E pumps into your building. So the DC power from the solar panels when the sun's shining come down to an inverter. The inverter inverts that power to AC power, or alternating current. That goes to your main service panel. And the way it's going to work is that during the day when your solar panels are generating electricity, it's going to go down through the inverter down to your main service panel. And when you're using electricity during the day, you're going to be using that solar power first. So you're not going to be pulling any more power from PG&E. If you produce more solar than you're using, that extra power is going to get pushed back into PG&E's grid, and it rolls your meter backwards for credit. And if you have to use more than the solar system is generating, or if you have to use power at night, you pull power from PG&E just like you normally do. So you don't need any batteries, you don't need any extra gear or anything like that. It's really gotten quite simple, where you just have solar panels connected to an inverter, and then it's connected to your main service panel, and that's pretty much it. Every system, you can see kind of in the upper right-hand corner, every system also gets an online monitoring system. So they come with apps. You can put it on your phone, you can put it on your tablets, you can put it on your computer, but basically you can track what the production of your system is in real time, which is kind of cool. You know, a lot of people play with it to start. Really what ends up happening is you just want to make sure your system's running. So we monitor these things at our office as well. But those are really the pieces that go into this. And you know, really it comes down to, are you producing more than you're using? And if so, it gets pushed back in the grid and you get a credit, and that credit pays for your usage at night. So, you know, so how solar works, you know, we just kind of walk through how it goes on the roof. So why do people go solar? And the simplest way to sum this up for you is basically solar is less expensive than what PG&E is charging you for electricity. So I don't know if you are not familiar with how PG&E is charging you, but basically they have a tiered system where as you start to use electricity during the month, you basically start at 0, and they count the number of kilowatt hours that you're using, or units of electricity that you're using. And as you use more, they start charging you more and more for that electricity, so it gets quite expensive. So, you know, this doesn't do a great job of depicting it, but you know, if you pay cash for a solar system, you know, the cost is kind of down here. If you finance your system, it's kind of up there. But you can see with the gray bars there at the end, regardless of what you do, solar is less expensive than what PG&E is charging you, which is why everybody's going solar. It also protects you from rising rates. So, you know, once you go solar, you're really no longer dependent on PG&E. One thing that I think probably everyone is familiar with, given that we're all PG&E customers, is that they've consistently raised rates year after year after year. So this is the bottom 2 tiers, and this goes back to 1967. This comes from PG&E, so you can see those rate hikes are pretty consistent up and to the right. You can see here, this is a customer who had a $250 a month bill in 2005. You know, that's basically where they're ending up now. And you can't really make this out, but this is their recent rate case where they got approved a 17, 5, and 6% increase for 2014, 15, and 16. So, you know, one of the benefits immediately is that the electricity is less expensive, so you save money right off the bat. The second benefit is because you no longer have to buy electricity from PG&E, you no longer have to worry about your bills increasing. I'll get to this if there's going to be a question. The committee asked me to prepare this, but this is basically what is happening to PG&E rates moving forward. If someone has a specific question, I'll turn back to this. We can also, the neat thing about solar is we can also take advantage of what we call time of use rates. And so the way PG&E, if you go on a time of use rate schedule, they have these different blocks. So at the nighttime, they charge you very little for electricity. In the early morning and the evening, they charge you a little bit more. In the peak part of the day, they charge you a lot. So, you know, if you want to go solar, what we're going to be doing is meeting with you one-on-one. We're going to look at your electrical usage history, and we're going to determine, you know, putting you on a time of use rate, will we take advantage of this expensive power? And essentially what we would do is design a system so that it's overproducing electricity and pushing it back during this part of the day. And you earn a lot more financial credit from that, so you can actually save a lot more money that way. So that's one of the things we'll be doing with you on an individual basis. And then lastly, once your system's installed, once you become a solar customer, one of the nice things is you go on what's called a 12-month true-up schedule. So from the day that you go solar, you get a bi-directional meter. So it's basically going to be counting how much you're using and how much you're producing. And then you're going to go on a 12-month true-up schedule. So you're only going to have to pay your electric bill once a year. And what PG&E is going to do is every month they're going to send you a true-up schedule and say, okay, for the month of January, the sun's not in the sky as long as you're not producing as much solar, you're probably paying PG&E a little bit during that month. They're going to say you owe us a little bit during this month, and they're going to tally it up month after month after month. In the summer months, you're actually going to produce a pretty significant credit during those months, which will offset the winter months. And then at the end of the year, they just say, okay, as a total for the 12 months, you owe us this much money. In the example that we've prepared, that offset is we're limiting about 90% of the bill for the unit, so you can kind of get an idea of what that would be at the end of those 12 months. But the nice part is you only have to pay once a year. So the benefits of going solar, as we mentioned, the primary benefit, the reason most people are doing it nowadays is to save money. We used to have a lot of people that would go solar strictly for environmental reasons. Now people save so much money with these things, it's really driven by dollars. But this kind of gives you an idea of what we're trying to do. If this is your pre-solar bill, this is what you're paying PG&E before you go solar. We're trying to eliminate the majority of that and put you down here, leave you with about 10% of the bill remaining for PG&E. There's really kind of two ways that you guys can go about doing that. One is you can pay cash for the system, and so you have an upfront payment, but basically all of this is eliminated. Or the other option is we can look at doing a loan. We can look at financing these systems. And so you don't pay anything out of pocket. You finance the whole system with a solar loan. And what ends up happening is your remaining PG&E bill plus your solar finance payment ends up being less than what you were paying PG&E before you went solar. So there's nothing out of pocket, and on day one you save money, you start saving money. So when we meet with you individually, we'll go through those scenarios with you.
Is that annual payment fixed? In other words, if a person preferred to have monthly payments, is that possible, as opposed to a lump sum at some point in the year?
Are you referring to this part when you go on the true-up schedule?
Yeah.
You can, so you have the option of paying monthly if you want. You don't have to. You'll get a bill every month, and you can pay during those months and not pay when it shows a credit. And at the end of that 12 months, they're going to net out those 12 months of debits and credits from your solar system, plus what you paid them. So if you want to pay on a monthly basis, you can for sure. So this is a, for some people who want to pay cash, those are the people who want to get a return on their investment. You get a lot, you recover your investment really fast. You have a free electricity bill after that. That's one way to do it. It's really popular. The other way is a loan. You pay nothing out of pocket, and we can walk you through different loan options in person. The details are better done in person. So the other benefit is you get a 30% tax credit, which everybody loves. So 30% of the gross cost of your system is going to be coming back to you in the year that the system is installed as a 30% tax credit. So not a deduction, it's a dollar for dollar tax credit. If anyone's on AMT, it applies to AMT as well.
Is that just for 2015, 2016?
As it stands now, it's through the end of 2016 tax year. So commercial will remain, it'll revert to 10% after, in 2017 after the 2016 tax year, but the residential tax credit goes away completely as it stands now at the end of 2016. So you would technically have to qualify for the tax credit, you have to have your system placed in service is the verbiage that the tax code uses, which basically means you have to have your inverter and your panels in place. It doesn't need to be connected to PG&E's grid, it doesn't need to be operational, but it needs to be placed in service, basically bolted down. Another benefit that a lot of people cite is the added home value. A lot of people kind of push this pretty hard, and they say you're going to get more money back from, you're going to add more money to your home than the solar system cost. I don't know if that's really reasonable. Lawrence Livermore Laboratory did a really big study. They looked at 72,000 homes, and they found that that solar added a significant amount of value to the home, actually more than the net cost. I think probably what's more reasonable to assume is that, and this is a good example of it, is, if you pay this money, if you pay cash for your system and you pay this money up front, you're going to save some money every year. And then if you were to go ahead and sell your house, you're likely going to get the net cost of that system, the after-tax credit cost. You're likely going to get that back in appreciated value when you're selling your home. So, some people look at it, even if they're not looking to stay in the home for, 10, 15, 20 years, they're looking at, okay, I'm going to pay this money, but that money is going to come back to me. It's an investment in the home, and it's going to appreciate the home value. I'm going to get that back later on. And then I still get to capture all those savings along those years. So the committee went through the process not only of vetting the installers, but also vetting the equipment. And so probably most easily summed up as kind of two factors that they were evaluating. One is what is the quality, reliability, durability of the equipment that's going to be installed to make sure all of the manor owners are set up for long-term success. The other part of that process is, what equipment is going to look the best on the roof. So both of those aspects they evaluated and determined that SunPower would be the best fit for Mutual 48 as a whole. The nice part about identifying equipment that should be installed is that, whether there's a large group that goes solar now or it's a smaller group that goes solar now and people go solar, kind of over the future years, the doors to going solar are now opening up to you. So people may go solar at different times, and we need to have a process at which that we can allocate the roof space or the productive capacity of that roof to each individual manor. And we also want to make sure that we don't end up with a mosaic of a bunch of different colored panels and types of panels and types of racking and all that stuff on the roofs, because it's going to give it a very different aesthetic. So they decided to go with SunPower. SunPower is as good as it gets in the business. So they were founded in '85. It's a local company. It came out of Stanford. Their corporate office is in San Jose. They've got another office in Richmond. They're I think they're a $5 billion or $4.5 billion publicly traded company. They have $600 million in cash on their balance sheet. I mean, they're a huge company. They're one of the biggest in the industry, but they have the best looking panels. They have the most efficient panels, which means they take up the least amount of space on the roof, and they have the best warranty and best reputation. Here's an example of some of the customers. I mean, they really are kind of a leader in commercial, residential, and utility. I mean, they cover all aspects of development. What makes SunPower such a superior product really goes to the architecture of their panel. And I don't want to bore everyone in the room with too much of this stuff, because some people aren't going to be interested in it. But this is a SunPower cell, and these solar cells are made out of silicon. When the sunlight hits them, it generates electrons that creates electricity. The silicon itself is better than their competitors, but the entire back of the cell, if you flip the cell over, the entire back of the cell is covered in copper. So you can literally fold this thing like a piece of paper and unfold it, and it produces almost at max capacity. Everyone else's cells are a thin piece of silicon, and they drip silver paste on the front of the cells and two conductors. And this thing, if you bend it a few degrees, it shatters like an untempered piece of glass. And so over the years, as the wind is hitting the modules and they're bending, this really drives the majority of the reliability that goes into the architecture of the cells, drives the reliability of the panel. But I mean, the numbers are just staggering when you compare the reliability of the SunPower product to its competitors. We've installed tens of thousands of SunPower panels over 7 years. We've never replaced a SunPower panel once it's been placed in service. So some have been damaged in shipping, but none have had it been pulled out of production and replaced. The other nice thing about these panels is they're more efficient, so they produce the same amount of power in a much smaller footprint. When you look at your roofs, because you're a vertical building with multiple floors, you have a limited amount of roof space for multiple manors. So we have to figure out how do we get the maximum amount of energy out of that roof so that we can offset the majority of the bills for all the manors underneath that roof, that common area roof. So, SunPower panels are about 21% efficient. You can see everyone else's panels are about 15% efficient. You can tell the difference in the color of these different modules. The reason this has a much darker look to it is because it has a better anti-reflective coating on the glass. So essentially more light is going through the glass, through the surface of the cell, and being absorbed as energy in the panel. Everybody else's panels, they use cheaper anti-reflective coating, and essentially what it does is it's reflecting more light back at you, so you get this real bright blue kind of hue to the projector. Magnet is kind of making this look brighter than it actually is, but you get a brighter blue look to it as opposed to a darker black look with SunPower. But you can see the difference. This is the same size system, the same productivity system, but you can see how much less square footage the SunPower panels take up to generate the same amount of power. And so that's another reason they went with it. And then this kind of gets back to the thing, some of the same thing that I was talking about previously. One of the other best parts about SunPower is they have the best warranty in the business. So they have a 25-year warranty. They guarantee 95% production through the 5th year, and then they linearly degrade the panel to 87.5% production by the 25th year. So at the 25th year of the panel's operation, they guarantee that it's going to generate 87% of its original rated power. If a SunPower panel does end up failing, the nice thing about them is they actually pay to remove the panels off the roof, ship it back to SunPower for testing, either fix it and send it back to you or ship you a new product, and they pay to have it put back on the roof. Nobody else in the industry does that. So you get more performance guaranteed out of the product, and you also get essentially no cost coverage on the panels if there's ever a problem for 25 years. And then finally, here's a picture of the SunPower app. One of the nice parts about SunPower is, you get the panels from them, you get the inverters from them, you get the monitoring system from them. There's only one manufacturer that you have to deal with. You don't have to deal with a bunch of different parties involved in the implementation of the system. There's essentially one party that's responsible for all the equipment.
What's the warranty on the inverter?
Typically 10 years. You can buy extensions to those, but the standard is 10 years.
What is your DC voltage output for the converter?
This is going to be a 600 volt, less than 600 volt system. So the operating voltage is going to be the signature voltage on the inverter. The turn on voltage is probably 320, 330, 340. You're probably going to get up to 500-ish, somewhere in there, but probably not much further than that. So going through design aspects for Mutual 48, and this is where it starts to get kind of fun. So you have 9 buildings, and you have 62 manors. And so typically what we deal with is, for a commercial building, we have a big parking lot, we can put a big solar canopy out there that cars can park under, and we get a lot of power that way. Or for a home, we have a big roof that we can use, and there's only one meter that we have to offset. We've kind of been using 3306 as our test case. They've been our guinea pig. And so you've got essentially 8 meters, you have 8 units, 8 manors. We have 4 meters over here, 4 meters over here, and so we basically have to figure out how do we get enough solar up there on this roof to be able to pipe it down to these 4 meters and these 4 meters and offset their bills. And so, what we're gonna have to do, and the way this process is gonna work, is we're basically going to, after this, I think the committee is going to kind of figure out who wants to go solar, who's interested in solar. And then myself and my team are gonna be meeting with everyone individually. We're going to be looking at your 12 months of historical electrical usage. We're going to be assessing what your future electrical needs might be, and we're going to be custom designing system sizes for you. At that same time, we're going to be going through and basically taking measurements on site of every roof. And we're going to be putting CAD plans together to figure out how many solar panels we can get up on those roofs. And then after that, we're basically going to put those two together and figure out, okay, if Richard needs 5 kW, how do we get his 5 kW and the 5 kW for the other 7 units up there, or whatever the system sizes might be. I think I'll let the committee get to this probably at a later date, but one of the things we're going to have to do is figure out, how do we allocate the solar per unit. it's probably not fair to give one unit 10 kW and another unit only 2 kW. We have to make sure that it's divided equitably between all the units, but that's going to be part of the discovery process as we go through this.
What's the average output of
327 watts DC.
What was the question?
What is the power output of an individual panel? And it's,
10 kW kilowatts?
yeah.
What's the size of that?
Roughly 3 by 5, 3 feet wide, 5 feet
A
tall.
little over a square meter,
Yeah,
or somewhere around.
roughly 18, it's 18.4, 18.3 square feet. So looking at 3306, this is actually to scale rendering of what a system might look like. And so we have a lot of constraints that we have to work with in the building department, fire departments. We have to have certain setbacks, and we can't cover skylights, and we can't cover some vents and things like that. So we're going to have to go through here and figure out, what's the most efficient way that we can install modules on these roofs. And for the people who want to go solar now, take up as little space as possible so that the majority of that roof is left for other people who want to go solar in the future. So we're going to be going through each building. We're going to be meeting with all the manor owners individually. We're going to be going through each building and kind of working through this with all of you. I'm kind of jumping ahead on slides here, but since we're looking at this, you'll see that there's going to be an advantage to going solar now as a group as opposed to going solar individually. And kind of the easiest way to describe that is for us to get solar panels up on the roof and mount them to the roof. That's all going to be pretty consistent. So whether it's 2 units or whether it's 4 units or 6 units, that's going to take about the same amount of time. What's different is when we come down off of this roof and we have to connect to the main service panel, there's a decent amount of work and a decent amount of cost that goes into basically connecting all of the solar panels to the inverters, to your main service panel, interconnecting them to PG&E. And so as more people go solar, those costs are essentially spread across all of those people who are going solar in that building. And so you get some economies of scale that we're going to be, that you'll see here in a second on the slide, that get shared across the group, as opposed to one unit putting in one system and having to do all of that work just for one system.
Can you put the panels on the carports that have no units around them?
You can. So, like these structures there?
Yeah.
You can. One of the challenges is going to be how do you need to pull wires, it's simply said, you need to pull wires from those solar panels back to PG&E's main service panel. So if we use 3306 as an example, if there weren't trees here and there wasn't shade and we put solar panels on this side, we would still have to trench all the way back to the main service panel. So what we're trying to do is use the cheaper, the more cost-effective installation methods first.
There's power to those carports. You know that?
Garages, yeah.
Well,
Not that
I'm talking carports, I'm not talking garages.
So we can look at those. I don't want to
Maybe a
dive.
conduit that you could pull back.
There might be. I mean, we can look at all that stuff. All we've looked at is 3306 without kind of going down a rabbit hole. It'll influence how we interconnect your system with PG&E and a bunch of different things. I mean, we'll assess all of that when we do the on-site evaluation. But right now, the cheapest way to go about installing solar is going to be on these roofs and come straight down the side of the building and connect directly to the main service panel.
So on 3306, which is an 8-unit building,
Mhm.
have you determined that there is enough space for all 8 of them to go solar?
Yeah.
And have you looked at any of the 12-unit buildings?
Generally speaking, yes, not specifically.
For 3306, would there be enough power if every 8 owners wanted to have an electric car, for example?
No. It'll be probably at that point. So an electric vehicle, if you're using the full battery capacity, is close to it's similar to adding another manor. They use about that much electricity. So you're essentially talking about taking this from an 8-manor building to a 16-manor building. You will be able to get more than the manor would need looking at the bills for 3306, generally speaking, there'll be more solar capacity than each manor owner will need. So you may not be able to offset the entire EV vehicle, but you'll definitely be able to make a dent in what it would be. So, this kind of gives you an idea of, I tried to pull street views and just kind of show you, I think one of the things that the solar committee and really the HOA was kind of concerned about when they were getting into this is how do we make this thing look good. And so this is an actual system that we did. The system's actually up in Marin in the Headlands, but this is the exact same type of roof that you guys have. It's it's kind of this tan colored TPO or kind of membrane roof. But that's essentially what these things are going to look like. They're going to be mounted pretty close to the roof. They're going to be kind of stood off the roof a little bit, but they're going to be really tight to the roof.